Congressman Jodey Arrington joins us, and Democrat Wisconsin Congresswoman Gwen Moore, both served on the House Ways and Means Committee. Congresswoman Moore, in addition, people point out that if you have, 10-year tax provisions, but you're only taking into account 1 or 2 years for these new programs, that's disingenuous because they're going to be extended. So actually, the cost is way above $1.75 trillion. Penn Wharton puts it at $4.6 trillion. Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget puts it at $4.9 trillion. So shouldn't we talk about, why don't we talk about what we're really doing here to the American people?
What we're doing for the American people is making an investment. This is the way we do budgeting in the House. When we pass the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the Republicans tried to extrapolate from that there would be benefits down the road outside of the budget window. And we are saying that if we provide pre-K at this point, that's not spending, that's an investment, that we will benefit from our future workforce being educated. And so it's just a different way of looking at it. The child tax credit is a tax refund to working families. We're looking at providing Pell Grants to people who will benefit from higher technology manufacturing. That's part of the infrastructure bill as well as this Build Back Better. It's a companion to that piece. And so we see these things as investments that will pay off. Now, many of them will pay off beyond the budget window.
Congressman Arrington, we're in a strange political environment here because we do see certain polls that seem to indicate that the American people are uncomfortable with the direction of the country. But when the most recent poll asked specifically about this Build Back Better plan, I think it was like 58% were in favor of it. How do you figure that out? How does that make sense?
Well, they have to cut through the noise, and as you called it, the disingenuous scoring. I think it's misleading to suggest that this is just going to create a $300 billion deficit. The promise was that it would pay for itself. Even CBO, with the Washington accounting gimmicks, don't have this thing paying for itself. And to your point, these programs will be extended. They'll be made permanent. Ultimately, will cost trillions of dollars. I mean, for folks who are trying to cut through this and understand that these taxes will ultimately depress wages further. They'll ultimately increase inflationary effects at the grocery store and the gas pump. These will drive jobs back overseas, giving Americans less opportunity. And when you have millions of people sidelined because of unemployment policies like the enhanced unemployment benefit that paid people more to be out of work than to go back to work, now you're going to repeal work requirements as you're expanding the welfare state and entitlement programs. We didn't even pay for the entitlement programs we have now. We're insolvent in the safety nets of Medicare, and that's being accelerated by this bill and other programs that we've promised to pay for and deliver for Americans that will be insolvent. This is a disaster, and I think people are waking up to it. That's why Virginia, it went from a blue state to red, and why you're seeing Democrats change parties in states like Texas.
Congresswoman Moore, another thing to consider is we've seen some inflation that we haven't seen in a long, long time. And maybe it's transitory, maybe it's supply chain induced. But we have had a lot of stimulus, and even some Democrats, like, do I still call Senator Manchin a Democrat? I'm going to, but they worry about inflation and throwing more fuel on the fire of an economy that looks pretty good already. Would you really argue, or can you make the case that, like we've heard from the Biden administration, that inflation could actually be cooled off if we pass another multi-trillion-dollar bill? Is that really, do you really believe that? Should we believe that?
Absolutely. You know, I listened to all 8 hours and 32 minutes of Leader McCarthy's speech. and he ranted on about inflation. And of course, we're concerned about inflation, gas prices, and food commodities. Not once did he mention what our own Congressional Research Service has done a huge paper on, the inflationary impact of the pandemic. Duh, that has disrupted the supply chain. Not once did he mention that. Also, severe climate change, severe weather has also contributed to the high rise in gas prices. And inflation is one of these words that really scares ordinary Americans. This is, according to, I think, 17 Nobel laureate economists, I not being one of them, that this is actually an anti-inflation bill. When you look at the opportunities that we provide to get people back into the workforce, think about the folk who were sidelined during the pandemic. Women who, many of them could not return to work because there was no school, there was no childcare, and even those folks who could find childcare couldn't afford it. This bill is going to keep childcare at no more than 7% of someone's income so that it can be affordable. How is it inflationary to provide a benefit to folk workers who now have no health care in Wisconsin? I mean, we were one of the states where Republicans did not want to expand health care to Americans. People need work supports in order to go to work. It costs money to go to work. You need health care benefits. You need paid family leave. You need childcare. That's my lived experience. And I mean, 8 hours and 32 minutes, not one mention of the pandemic, which this is very similar to what we experienced when we were in the war in Vietnam. This is the comparison to that. It's transitory, and this bill is going to deliver us from these inflationary impacts.
Congressman Arrington, we have trouble getting for some reason. We've got all these jobs, maybe not enough people for the jobs. There's a lot of reasons for that. Do you think it's possible at all if we had universal child care and if it was done right? That's hard. You know, the federal government sometimes isn't great at doing things. It seems more expensive than it needs to be at times. But isn't there something to that everyone could get back to work? We would free up a lot of these families that either can't afford child care or just are uncomfortable with the current situation. Wouldn't that help?
Well, it would help if the American people could keep more of their hard-earned money to pay for child care and other needs. We doubled the child care tax credit, but we kept the incentive for work in place. They want to put $1 trillion tax credit that removes any incentive for people, able-bodied adults, to be looking for work or go back to work. The best anti-poverty program is still a job, and we need incentives that pull people up and out of poverty, not trap them in poverty. And one thing that I heard Ms. Moore say, that we listened to hours of Leader McCarthy, and she didn't hear anything about child care. I haven't heard the Democrats talk about the giveaways to millionaires in blue states like they're doing through SALT cap repeal. That is the second largest spending program in their bill. They're giving hundreds of billions of dollars in tax giveaways to millionaires, to newspaper organizations, to plaintiffs' attorneys. People who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year get thousands of dollars in tax credits to buy electric vehicles. And so it's to me, to wrap the flag of income inequality and economic fairness around a bill where you're giving all these goodies away to millionaires is insulting to working people in this country who are going to get hit with lower wages and higher costs on account of this massive tax and spend bill. That's the bottom line.
I'm sorry to both of you, but they're playing me out. It'd be great to have you both back, and we can continue this. Congresswoman Moore, I know you. It looked like you had a few things you wanted to say in response. I try to make it even, and Congressman, we'll see you disagree, but we'll do it again.
She'll find me on the floor of the House. I guarantee you.
Okay.